Hello. Hello, hello. Hey, Dawn. Hey, Jacqueline. Hey, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, Crystal. Hey, Pam. Hey, Jamie. How are you? Hey, Chrissy. Hey, guys. Hello, hello. Hey, Sunshine. Hey, Danielle. Hello, Amber. Hello. Hey, Lisa. Hello, Emily. How are you? Hello, another Jamie. Hey, Magda. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love these things. Bomb pops. I love them. I couldn't help myself. Hey, Jessica. Hello, hello. Hey, hey, Amanda. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so rude, but I couldn't help. My kid came in, was like, you want one? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. Hey, TJ. They are the best. These are my favorite.
Okay. So I had to take my iPad from Gio.
Not Nina in her throne.
We need your mob boss chair.
I know, I need to get my Godfather chair all set up. It's on its way. That's so funny.
No, not the other one, the smaller. You can give me this one. Give me the other one, though, please. All right, so.
I'll talk as soon as my little bomb pop here is done.
Girl.
Thank you.
What pages are you reading?
Hey, it's me, Jojo. I'm starting at 19. And literally, I have so much here. I'm sure we're not going to be able to get through the whole thing tonight. Thank you, Jessica. I'm sure we're not going to be able to get through the whole thing tonight, but it is a lot. And it goes into his plea deal. And that is so, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I guess that helps me fill my goal. I made that my goal today. So thank you, thank you. But yeah, it goes into the plea deal, but somebody just sent me something, and that's what I was reading. I wasn't trying to be rude, but somebody just sent me and said this is a little more in-depth of what was going on during his next trial. Definitely shows not a fair trial. They don't even dismiss jurors who knew about the case that already heard Gypsy's media coverage. I was surprised to find a news article that was actually truthful. And she sent me the article, and I was just reading it.
I think that's the article I read,
Is it?
where they were talking all about the jury pool.
They're talking about a lot of it.
I think I read that article last year, but it was so much going on when I saw the article. It was hard to. Gio, can you get the other one for me, Papa?
Yeah.
Thank you. It might be in the kitchen or it might be in the room, okay? You said page 19.
Yeah, it starts off with Nicholas Godejohn was denied effective assistance of counsel. And I only picked there because at some point you have to have a cutoff where you start and a cutoff where you end. And so I just picked that page because it started talking about the plea deal. And that was really something that I feel like I wanted to talk about.
But it goes from 16 to 22. Did you notice that?
So it did, but I just started where they were talking about the plea deal. Because the more and more I went up, I'm like, you know what I mean? It all starts to go through it. But I figured
Oh, I see it. I see it. I see it. That's page 16, right?
19. I have it on 19 where it says the defendants have the Sixth Amendment right, and then on And then on 20,
Hey.
it talks about Nicholas's letter to his lawyer, to Perry. So that's really the part I wanted to focus on. So that's why I picked to start on 19.
Okay.
But we can start on 16 if you want. I just didn't print them out. I can go to the computer though. It's up to you.
16 is where I see Nicholas Godejohn was denied effective assistance of counsel, a fair trial due to process, and was subject to cruel and unusual punishment in the violations of his rights under the 5th, 6th, and 8th in the violations of his rights under the 5th, 6th, and 8th, and 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Yep.
Okay.
Did you want to start reading that? Then I'll take over on 19? Or do you want me to just pull up the email? It doesn't matter to me.
You have it on the actual paper?
Starting on 19, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Just because when I read it, I feel like I retain it better. If you read it and I listened to it, I wouldn't retain it as well, which is why I like to read it, just because it stays in my head.
And that's funny because I retain it better listening.
Do you?
But that's the ADHD.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because I'll focus on reading it and not focus on anything I'm actually reading.
Oh, see, I'm not.
If I silently read, for some reason, I'll get it. I don't know how to explain it to you, but if I'm reading out loud, I won't.
I can. I like to read. Like, reading it to me helps me because I read it to myself and it makes me understand. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. All right, but this is just the section I picked because it talks about his plea deals. So we'll start with there. Nicholas Godejohn was denied effective assistance of counsel, a fair trial, due process, and equal protection of the law, and was subjected to cruel and unusual punishment in violation of his rights under the 5th, 6th, 8th, 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, Article 1, Sections 2, 10, 18, and 21 of the Missouri Constitution because of his defense counsel rendered ineffective assistance of counsel by failing to investigate mitigation of evidence for use in plea negotiations. Counsel failed to exercise the customary skill and diligence that a reasonably competent attorney would have exercised under similar circumstances. Nicholas Godejohn was prejudiced as a result in that, had counsel not been ineffective, there is a reasonable probability that the outcome of this case would have been different, and that Mr. Godejohn would not have been convicted of first-degree murder and armed criminal action, and would not have been sentenced to life without probation or parole, plus 25 years concurrent. Counsel's failures and omissions, including but not limited to those listed below, resulted in Mr. Godejohn being denied a fair trial, due process, and freedom from cruel and unusual punishment. Defendants have a Sixth Amendment right to counsel, a right that extends to plea bargaining process. And it goes on to mention Missouri v. Fry. During plea negotiations, defendants are entitled to effective assistance of competent counsel. Competent being the key word there. McCann v. Richardson is another one that they're referring to. In Fry, the Supreme Court plainly recognized that plea negotiations are a critical point. Plea negotiations. That's the word I want you to focus on, is plea negotiations. Plea negotiations are a critical point in the course of a criminal proceeding in which effective assistance of counsel is required. Like other claims of ineffective assistance of counsel arising from plea negotiations are reviewed under the two-part test laid out in Strickland v. Washington, and then it goes on and gives the other different cases, which does not mean anything to us. A letter in the trial file from Mr. Godejohn to his trial counsel, Mr. Perry, dated September 13th, 2016, reads, in part, as follows. Today, when we were in court, you told me that the prosecutor was not interested at this time in any plea agreement. What I would like to know is exactly how that conversation went, as close as you can recall, just so I understand in my mind where he is coming from. If there is a possibility that in the future that this may be something he would consider. I would like to know if this means it is still an option or possibility. So that right there, he's stating that he is looking and is considering a plea deal, right? We're all in agreement that he's considering a plea deal, and he's asking if they're going to offer one, and he's interested in it, right? The trial file reflects that counsel engaged in plea negotiations with the prosecutor on at least two occasions. The memo in the trial file reflects that trial counsel conveyed to Mr. Godejohn on December 2nd, 2016, the state's first offer of life with parole eligibility on a plea to murder in the second degree with a dismissal of the armed criminal action charge. The memo states that Mr. Godejohn rejected that offer, but did want counsel to make a counteroffer of 15 years on a reduced charge of murder in the second, and 15 years on the armed criminal action charge to run concurrent. The state made a second plea offer to Mr. Godejohn by letter on March 2nd, 2018. This offer was for life, probation denied, with parole on a charge of murder in the second degree, with 10 years consecutive on the armed criminal action charge. According to a notation in the trial file, this offer was rejected by Mr. Godejohn on May 2nd, 2018.
So let's pause real quick.
Okay.
And I want to say this for those incompetent people over there on Breeze Live, and incompetent including you, Bree, where you said that he was offered two plea deals and he would have had less time. If you understood what she just read, he still would have never gotten out.
No.
So let's be clear. Because your incompetence continues to basically give misinformation. I want to make that clear. Because they keep saying, oh, he could have gotten 25 years or he could have gotten no. If you really understood what it is saying here, it is very clear. Regardless, it would have been life.
Right. Life or, yeah. I mean, right here, that's what it says.
Both plea deals.
It is clear that Mr. Godejohn was open to taking a plea deal in this case. It was incumbent then on counsel to engage in meaningful plea negotiations with the state in order to get the best plea deal offer possible. An important aspect of plea negotiations is presenting mitigating evidence about the crime and about the defendant to the state to support an argument for a plea to a lesser charge with a lower sentence. Counsel failed to adequately investigate and present mitigation evidence to the prosecutor in this case as part of plea negotiations. So again, part of their due process, part of their right is the ability to have plea negotiations. He was denying them and turning the plea deals down, but he was expecting them to barter with him. He was expecting his lawyer to say, well, we're not going to accept that one, but well, what about this one? And this is the reason. This is the evidence I'm giving you to justify why this one is a good idea. You know what I mean? And that's how they work it, and that's what they're saying didn't happen here. And so that was a injustice to him. Counsel was aware, should have been made aware prior to the trial, that Nicholas was diagnosed with autism as early as second grade and with Asperger's syndrome in high school. Counsel was aware, or should have been aware, that autism refers to a group of complex neurodevelopment disorders characterized by repetitive and characteristic patterns of behavior and difficulties with social communication and interaction. Counsel also was aware, or should have been aware, that the symptoms of ASD are present from early childhood and affect daily functioning. Counsel was aware, or should have been aware, that there are structural brain differences in some with autism compared to those without. Counsel was also aware, or should have been aware, that for 3 years prior to the offense, Nicholas Godejohn and Gypsy Blanchard engaged in an increasingly intense online relationship, which included sensually explicit online chats and videos made by Gypsy and sent to Nicholas. Those, all right, so then we're going to move on to here. This is nothing. This is just saying the family members that they would have interviewed, which it doesn't say anything, it's just giving their names as part of the mitigation investigation. If counsel would have investigated Mr. Godejohn's family background, he would have known that Nicholas suffered a traumatic birth. The umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck twice. Suction cups were used to assist in his birth. He looked blue when he was born, and he had to be resuscitated by medical personnel. Trial counsel would have known that Nicholas witnessed physical violence during the time that his mother was in a relationship with his father, Robert Godejohn, and that Robert Godejohn continued to be physically violent with his mother, Stephanie, even after the relationship ended. Additionally, counsel would have known that many of Stephanie Goldammer's subsequent boyfriends after Nicholas's father were violent. Nicholas witnessed much of the violence that occurred between his mother and his father, as well as between his mother and her subsequent boyfriends while growing up. If counsel would have done an adequate mitigation investigation, counsel would have known that Nicholas Godejohn had a very difficult time making friends at school and that he played mostly with his cousins and other family members when he was younger. Nicholas would often be at family gatherings at his father's grandparents' home, celebrating some sort of birthday or anniversary. Nicholas got along with his cousin for the most part when he was younger, but they all knew he was different. Counsel would have known that Nicholas attended religious Catholic classes during the time he would be with his father, and that in those classes he had to have special one-on-one instruction because of his disabilities, which was not the norm for those classes. If counsel would have obtained the mental health records from the Waukesha County Jail, counsel would have known that the mental health providers at the jail indicated that Nicholas Godejohn did not seem to know the gravity of the situation he was in, was depressed and confused. On June 17, 2015, one day after his statement to the police, when asked about his concerns about his ability to cope while incarcerated, Nicholas responded that he was mainly worried about his girlfriend. Nicholas stated, "The only reason I did what I did was to be with my girlfriend." Further observations by mental health providers at the jail indicate patient presents nervous, slightly confused at contact, seems very grateful to have some of the jail process explained in detail. Patient presents vulnerable and is tearful when discussing his charges. In the mental health records, it also states that on June 23, 2015, Mr. Godejohn stated that since he's been able to read his court documents, he understands what's happening with his case, and indicated that his girlfriend was definitely a trigger for his OCD. The records also reflect that Mr. Godejohn said that he mainly gets obsessed with things, but he doesn't list compulsions. The records quote Mr. Godejohn as saying, "Before, I didn't understand the severity of the situation until I had all this time to think about it." I'm going to take a break. Hold on. Counsel failed to adequately investigate Nicholas Godejohn's background and family history. Although counsel requested and received Mr. Godejohn's Social Security disability records, which contained some school IEP records and some limited medical records, they failed to request his mental health records and other records from the Waukesha County Jail, where he was held for over three weeks after his arrest. These records and information from Nicholas's family, together with consulting with a neuropsychologist who had substantial practical experience in evaluation and treating individuals with autism, would have provided counsel with convincing mitigation to present to the prosecutor when negotiating a plea agreement in this matter. This would have provided counsel with a way to effectively negotiate a plea agreement with a sentencing option that would have taken into consideration the considerable amount of mitigation that was present in Nicholas Godejohn's case. So again, look at the home he grew up with. Look at the home environment he was raised in. He also was raised in an abusive environment. He watched his parents fight physically. He watched his father beat his mother.
We can't even say also. We can't even say that.
Right. Well, I'm just going by, like, if you listen to the, her reasoning for the plea deal. Well, he was also, and he also had issues with his family and how he was raised. on top of being vulnerable because of the autism. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, good night. Good night. I love you. You did a great job at soccer today, baby. I see you in the morning. All right. Nicholas Godejohn was denied effective assistance of counsel, a fair trial, due process, and was subjected to cruel and unusual punishment in violation of his rights under the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments of the United States. Article, whatever. His trial counsel failed to investigate and present evidence from a qualified neuropsychologist specializing in autism at the suppression hearing to support that Nicholas Godejohn's mental disease or defect rendered his waiver of his Miranda rights involuntary. Counsel failed to exercise the customary skills and diligence that a reasonably competent attorney would have exercised under similar circumstances. Nicholas was prejudiced as a result in that had counsel not been ineffective, there is a reasonable probability that he would not have been convicted of first degree and armed criminal action and would not have been sentenced to life without probation and 25 years. Nicholas was subjected to custodial interrogation as he was subjected to questioning initiated by law enforcement officers after being taken into custody. The Miranda decision gave force to the Constitution's protection against compelled self-incrimination by establishing procedural safeguards that require police to advise criminal suspects of their rights under the 5th and 14th Amendments before commencing custodial interrogation. A heavy burden rests on the government to demonstrate that the defendant knowingly and intelligently waived his privilege against self-incrimination and his right to retained or appointed counsel, Miranda v. Arizona. The government must satisfy the high standard of proof for the waiver of constitutional rights set forth in. Waivers of a constitutional right must not only be voluntary, but must constitute a knowing and intelligent relinquishment or abandonment of a known right or privilege, a matter which depends in each case upon the particular facts and circumstances surrounding that case, including the background, experience, and conduct of the accused. A valid waiver has two distinct dimensions. First, a waiver must be voluntary in the sense that it was the product of a free and deliberate choice rather than intimidation, coercion, or deception. Second, a waiver must be made with a full awareness of both the nature of the right being abandoned and the consequences of that decision to abandon it. Only if the totality of the circumstances surrounding the interrogation reveals both an uncoerced choice and the requisite level of comprehension may a court properly conclude that the Miranda rights have been waived. While a waiver of the Miranda rights may be implied through the defendant's silence, coupled with an understanding of his rights and a course of conduct indicating a waiver, it is not enough for the state to establish that a Miranda warning was given and that the accused made an uncoerced statement. Such a showing standing alone is insufficient to demonstrate a valid waiver of Miranda rights. The prosecution must make the additional showing that the accused fully understood these rights. In this case, counsel was aware, or should have been aware prior to the trial, that Nicholas was diagnosed with autism as early as 2nd grade and with Asperger's syndrome as a teen. Counsel was aware, or should have been aware, that autism refers to a group of complex neurodevelopment disorders characterized by repetitive and characteristic behaviors and difficulties with social communication and interaction. In December 2015, counsel retained a clinical psychologist, Dr. Kent Franks, to evaluate Mr. Godejohn for competency. Dr. Franks found Mr. Godejohn competent to stand trial and provided trial counsel with a report to the effect, and also diagnosed Mr. Godejohn with autism level 2, requiring substantial support with an accompanying intellectual impairment. Dr. Frank's report was provided to trial counsel on September 28, 2016. On October 11, 2016, trial counsel informed the court that the defense in this case would not be NGRI, but diminished capacity. The record reflects that trial counsel filed a boilerplate motion to suppress on September 13, 2017, and on September 25, 2017. A hearing on that motion was held. The state called 4 Greene County Sheriff's officers to testify, and the following evidence was adduced. Detectives from the Greene County Sheriff's Office traveled to Waukesha to interview Nicholas and Gypsy. They spoke with Gypsy first. Nicholas had been handcuffed. Hold on, this is a whole lot to go into, so let me sit. Yes, whoever just asked that, I do believe that he had ineffective counsel. Nicholas had been handcuffed in a small interrogation room for at least 15 hours. Thank you. Before Detective Mahoney began interrogating him, starting shortly after midnight. He was handcuffed in a small interrogation room for at least 15 hours. This is a man who is confirmed to have autism, who is handcuffed in a small interrogation room for 15 hours. Y'all, we sat there for 12 minutes while that toothbrush was running yesterday. Think about 15 hours. Like, that's wild to me. That would be like from now until tomorrow afternoon for me. Crazy. He was not given a blanket until he had been there for 9 hours. He was wearing shorts with no shoes. Nicholas was chattering and talking to himself and believed that the police were doing everything to help us, quote unquote. Detective Mahoney had been given no information that Nicholas was autistic, and she did not glean that he might have been diminished to some degree in his capacity to understand the questions.
That part, Tangi. She said, meanwhile, Gypsy had a couch covered, no food, with food, no handcuffs, a fish, and a blanket.
And a couch. She was laying on a couch, napping on a couch, while he sat in a chair in a small interrogation room, cold for the first 9 hours in handcuffs, and not even given a blanket till 9 hours in, but for 15 hours in its entirety, at least. So that's wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
Detective Mahoney was unaware whether Greene County had any policy on reading Miranda warnings to people who might have trouble understanding or interviewing someone who is autistic. She had received no training regarding encounters with people who are autistic. Nicholas told her that he was tired and that he felt, quote unquote, loopy from being awake for so long. The entirety of Nicholas's 15-hour detention was recorded on 5 DVDs that were admitted and viewed by the trial court as part of a motion to suppress hearing. 15 hours in a chair. He sat in a chair for 15 hours.
Handcuffed.
He was handcuffed and didn't get a blanket until 9 hours in a room all by himself, cold and talking to himself. A man who already, let's be real, has an issue understanding of what's going on. He's worried about her. He's not even worried about himself. Remember, he's got OCD. He's fixated on her. And again, that's me saying that. I don't know how long Gypsy was in her interrogation room. I honestly don't know.
But I don't think it was all that long, because remember that man they had the sheriff babysit her, right?
Right. And
that guy came in, they sent that guy.
Yeah. I should have come with that information today, but I will tomorrow. But again, she still had a couch. She had a stuffed animal and a blanket. And we all saw her laying there on that couch, napping. And he sat at a table in handcuffs. When defense counsel rested after calling no witnesses, the trial court indicated it had 1,000 questions. The trial court pointed out that the court had no evidence of Mr. Godejohn's education, physical or mental condition, and no evidence on how his mental disorder affected his ability to understand the Miranda warning. Defense counsel asked the court to take notice of the November 30th, 2016 offer of proof where Dr. Franks testified about his mental evaluation of Nicholas. The trial court wanted to see the mental studies done on Nicholas by both sides. Both parties filed further suggestions, which included the mental evaluations of defense expert Dr. Franks and state expert Dr. Denny. However, neither expert is a qualified neuropsychologist specializing in autism spectrum disorder. Neither have experience in evaluating and treating individuals with autism spectrum disorder, and neither was hired to evaluate how that mental disease or defect would affect a person's ability to voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently waive Miranda rights. Ultimately, the trial court overruled Nicholas's motion to suppress his police statement, and it was introduced at trial as State Exhibit 149. That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah. Because even with all that, first of all, someone that doesn't even have any special needs, that's a lot of time, right? Like, it just to think, like, they really treated him like a dog.
They treated him, and you gotta wonder if, let's be real, looks play a part in everything, right? You're going to treat someone based if they look a little weird, you're gonna have a little bit of, like, I don't know, males, I feel like, get a lot of the heat more than females. When we look at crimes like that one, I'm not going to say because the boy's there, but when you look at crime like this, mostly it's men. We all have just a gender assumption that it's the male before the female because then we're into it, right?
Right.
So you got to. I mean, all of that had to play a part in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, look at her innocence, how she portrayed her.
Okay. Just let it charge.
The video of Godejohn's detention shows that during the 15 hours that Nicholas was held handcuffed in a small interview room, his emotional condition was compromised. During much of this time, he exhibited worry and concern about Gypsy's well-being, repeatedly asking officers about her condition. He made multiple inquiries to law enforcement as to whether he would be allowed to physically hold Gypsy, and the officers held that possibility open. They never definitively answered him, which caused further distress and distraction to Nicholas.
Because I also want you to keep in mind, he was always worried about Gypsy pulling the rug from up under him. So I'm sure during this time he was under distress simply because, in his mind, he didn't understand the gravity of this was a forever type of situation. And just the thought that Gypsy might be mad at him or not speak to him again probably had him in some sort of distress.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What did I just leave off? Hold on. He made multiple inquiries to law enforcement as to whether he... Oh, I read that part already. At 13:30 on the video, Nicholas tells an officer that, quote unquote, obviously, I know you and every one of the people in the sheriff's department is doing all you guys can to help me and her. At 21:17, Nicholas replies to an officer who had inquired about his well-being. Quote unquote, I'm just trying to hang in here emotionally since I miss Gypsy so much. At one point during the questioning,
that he said he knew that they were doing everything to help him and Gypsy. Like, that lets you know right there that he really did not understand what was happening, because the same cops that are trying to put you away forever, he thinks is looking out for their best interest. That is something that I think is very important to note.
Yeah.
Right. Nick was so innocent minded that he really just didn't. I don't even fully know if he understood that that meant Dee Dee was even gone forever. Because, the concept of death, a lot of people, even, um, especially if you have like a childlike mind, like that concept of death unless you experienced it, like someone passing, you
Right.
may not understand. Because I
The
even remember when
reality
my
of it,
daughter,
like a child doesn't realize that if somebody goes, that they're not coming back. You know what I mean?
right?
They're not understanding
Because
the
I
reality of it.
I remember even saying to Lonnie one time, like, if you walk into the street and a car hits you, that's it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
We're done, yeah.
And she said, "Well, if I'm dead, why can't you just charge me?" In her mind, it was just that simple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, like, when you think about that, you don't even know where he was at with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree. At one point during the questioning, Nicholas indicates that he is quote unquote loopy from being awake for such a lengthy period of time. The environment he was kept in was both distressing and inadequate. While Gypsy was provided a couch to sleep on during the lengthy wait for Greens County officers to arrive in Wisconsin, Nicholas had to sit at the table the entire time. He was not given a blanket to shield himself from the cold after being held in the interview room for at least 9 hours with bare feet, shorts, and short sleeve shirt. He was bound with handcuffs for 12 hours and 53 minutes before the interrogation began. Before the interrogation began.
Yeah, you're mentally gone, because when you're sleep deprived, first of all, you're handcuffed, you're sleep deprived. At that point, you're almost delirious, right?
Absolutely.
Because keep in mind, it's probably cold in there too, right? Um,
Now, my question is, how long was he awake before that? Because you're right. You can actually be considered clinically insane after so many hours without sleep.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you're not able to make that decision. And they say when you're that tired and you're that exhausted, you ever see that commercial or watch the ad where it's like, if you're driving that tired, you might as well be drunk.
and not only that, like
And you might as well have been drunk.
that and under distress.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the distress alone will make you even more mentally exhausted than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. He was bound with handcuffs for 12 hours and 53 minutes before the interrogation.
Exactly. So someone said, and he didn't even have the capacity to ask for a lawyer, and they took advantage of that. Yeah, that was something, and I do want us to go through the interrogation eventually. But that was one thing I had said as well, is that they did ask him if he wanted an attorney, right? But he didn't even understand. I don't even think he understood what an attorney could do for him, let alone know that this was so serious that he needed an attorney, right? And I really, truly don't think he understood what he was up against. Like, and you could kind of hear that in the interrogation when she was asking him about something that he did, and he kind of like laughed and was like, yeah. Like he was thinking this lady that cares is here asking him questions.
That's what you just said. He thinks that they're protecting him,
Yeah.
that they're going to take care of him, that I don't think he realized I may need someone to, make sure that I'm careful around these people, because he did not see them as a threat.
Right.
He didn't have that complete understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
To protect himself, like most people, you see an officer, you have the right to stay silent without representation, right? He wouldn't even know if they Mirandized him or not. He would, I mean, certain things were under the law. Those are your rights. And also, it does say in that paperwork that the lady who interrogated didn't know about how to handle anyone with a disability. So even that, I think they should have had like some type of like guardian ad litem or someone there to advocate for him, because when you say to someone on the spectrum with him, like him, that has a low IQ, when you say you have the right to remain silent, it's kind of like, well, why would I have to? Because these people aren't a threat, right? Like, so like all of that is stuff that I think people really need to take into account, because I think a lot of times when we hear information like this, we take it from our point of view where we are, right? Because it seems like common sense to us, but it's not that for everyone. It's kind of like where you tell your kids something and to you, you're like, yeah, that's obvious. But keep in mind, you're speaking to a 7-year-old.
Yep. There was no way that he thought that what he said that right there was going to be held against him. He had no idea. There's no one can convince me that he knew that what he said in that room was going to be the thing that locks him up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or at least not to the degree that he, you know what I mean, that he did it. You know what I mean?
Oh, meanwhile, she's in the other room lying her ass off,
Having a whole meal.
acting like she didn't even know her mama wasn't here. She looked like she was gonna seize out, like for real. Had like,
Did she finally do it? Did she unalive herself?
No, girl, your mama was not here. Like you were the one who, remember, you were the one who turned the temperature down to preserve the body.
Yeah. The video reflects that Corporal Mahoney sought to minimize the impact of the warnings by assuring Nicholas that they were going to talk and that she would tell him about Gypsy after they. Let me read that one more time. The video reflects that Corporal Mahoney sought to minimize the impact of the warnings by assuring Nicholas that they were going to talk and that she would tell him about Gypsy after they did the waiver first.
Not only that, think about in the interview when she said, "Oh, you don't want to get Gypsy in trouble, do you?" Being that she already knew that he cared about Gypsy, she held Gypsy over his head to kind of get him to say, and she probed him in that interview, like,
manipulation is a tactic, and it's one thing to use it for somebody on an even playing field with you intellectually, but when you take that to somebody who doesn't have a fighting chance, that's where it becomes wrong. He doesn't have the social cues to pick up the fact that he's being manipulated
at all.
Like, you said that to me, I'd be like, oh, I see you, but not him. Not you. We would notice that we were being manipulated, but not him. The context of their discussion renders it unclear as to whether Nicholas fully understood that he was being asked to waive his rights as a criminal suspect, and his statement should have been suppressed. Corporal Mahoney also takes advantage of Nicholas's preoccupation about and emotional distress involving Gypsy by stating to him, quote, "If you love Gypsy, you're not going to let her get in trouble without you being there to help her. Okay? Do you want to do the right thing by Gypsy if you love her?" End quote. And, quote, "This is the point where you're going to prove that you do love her when me and you talk," end quote. And it tells you the times. Both of that is on the video. So in case we want to watch it later, we can see the times. Coupled with Nicholas's impairments, the interrogation by Corporal Mahoney illustrates Nicholas's inability to knowingly relinquish or abandon his rights. He had to be directed to fill out the the biographical information on the Miranda form with help and instruction from Corporal Mahoney. At 17 minutes 10 seconds, Nicholas is at 12:17, Nicholas is able to recognize the Miranda rights from television, but shows no signs of comprehending them. The effects of his autism are exemplified by the process in which the Miranda form was completed. Mahoney directs him to initial each of the rights after they are individually read to him, and Nicholas asks if he can initial at the end of the document because there is only one signature line. His autism caused him to focus on the systematic order of the form's completion rather than on the substance of what is contained in the form itself. Since counsel knew that Mr. Godejohn had been diagnosed with autism, it was incumbent on counsel to investigate and present evidence at the suppression hearing from a qualified neuropsychologist who had expertise and experience in the area of autism spectrum disorder Asperger syndrome. Had counsel hired a neuropsychologist with substantial expertise in evaluating and treating individuals with ASD and Asperger's, such as Dr. Ted Wasserman, he would have testified that while Nicholas was provided written Miranda warnings, which were read to him, he did not have the ability to understand those rights. He would have testified that due to Nicholas's autism, he is extremely immature, vulnerable to suggestion and direction, and requires substantial support. His autism interferes with his ability to envision consequences, think ahead, or understand the gravity of the situation he is in. He would have further testified that the Missouri Miranda warning has a Flesch-Kincaid score of 7.4, meaning it requires a 7th grade reading level. Hold on. I saw that, Magda. He would have further testified that the Missouri Miranda warning has a Flesch-Kincaid score of 7.4, meaning it requires a 7th grade reading level. Nicholas's reading ability, per his senior year IEP, was between 5th and 6th grade. A neuropsychologist with substantial practical experience with autism, such as Dr. Wasserman, would have testified to the nature and extent of Nicholas's mental illness, combined with his well-documented comprehension deficits, and the effects of being in mental distress and handcuffed for 15 hours in a small room leading up to the interrogation. 14 hours in a small room leading up to the interrogation, and how this affected his ability to provide a valid waiver of rights. Mental illness is certainly a factor that a trial court should consider when deciding on the validity of a waiver. It is if a defendant cannot understand the nature of his rights, he cannot waive them intelligently. Miller v. Duggar. He would have further testified that Nicholas's waiver was not an intentional choice because he was not aware of the nature of the choice that he made by giving up his Miranda rights. An expert neuropsychologist specializing in autism would have testified at suppression hearing that Mr. Godejohn did not sign the Miranda form with a full awareness of both the nature of the right being abandoned and the consequences of his decision to abandon it. Further support for the opinion of an expert such as Dr. Wasserman was available to counsel through information from Nicholas Godejohn's family about his behavior over the course of his life, from school records, hospital records, Social Security disability records, videos and Facebook messages provided in discovery, and mental health records from the Waukesha County Jail in Wisconsin. Information from Nicholas Godejohn's family in Wisconsin would have provided anecdotal information familiar to an expert in the field of autism spectrum disorders, which could be used to support his findings in regard to his ability to knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily waive his Miranda rights. If counsel would have adequately investigated a qualified, experienced expert who had substantial practical experience in evaluating and treating individuals with autism to determine whether Nicholas Godejohn was capable of waiving his Miranda warnings, counsel would have discovered that an expert such as Dr. Ted Wasserman was available and would have concluded to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty that Mr. Godejohn was not able to knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily waive his Miranda rights. Dr. Wasserman, or a similarly situated neuropsychologist, would have testified at Mr. Godejohn's suppression hearing and will testify at any hearing granted in this case that because of his autism, Mr. Godejohn did not knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily waive his Miranda rights. Counsel was ineffective for failing to investigate and present evidence at the suppression hearing from a qualified neuropsychologist specializing in autism. Nicholas Godejohn was prejudiced by counsel's failure in that the outcome of his trial would have been different, and Mr. Godejohn would not have been convicted of unaliving in the first degree, and a new trial must be ordered. So, yeah, there's that. So that right there, I mean, just think about the environment, the situation. One is a whole lot more intellectually vulnerable, psychologically more vulnerable than the other. Now, the one who was not as vulnerable was treated with kid gloves. The other one, however, the one who should have been treated with a little bit of, was the one who was treated the worst. So again, there's the injustice in even how they were treated. You know what I mean? And again, knowing that he was already intellectually inferior to the average person, you can't hold him to the same standards of the average person. You just can't. Most of us would know that we want a lawyer. Most of us would know we're facing a lot of trouble. This is an unaliving. This is serious. Most of us would know that these police officers questioning us are not our friends. We would all know that. But he did not know that. He thought, first of all, through the entire thing, and I remember watching the interrogation, when he wasn't talking to himself and replaying things in his mind, he was more worried about Gypsy than even himself because he didn't understand the seriousness of the situation he was in my opinion. And that of his counsel. So, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. I don't know. I think that's
what I don't really understand is how they've denied, or why I do understand why they've denied the appeals, because they've done very underhanded things in the past.
right.
But I feel as though, I guess they figured no one would care enough to do anything for him and they would get away with this.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things in here that I wonder where that public defender is at now.
I don't know, but I hope he is.
Like, it's specific public defender.
I hope he's flipping burgers. I'm just saying. So I saw somebody in the chat say his lawyer should have this. This is from his lawyers. This is his lawyer stating that his original counsel was inadequate. So this is his lawyer stating all of this stuff. And they're saying that he didn't get a fair trial because of these things. So this is his lawyer speaking. Absolutely.
Right, but I'm saying the original attorney, I would be curious to know where.
I don't know.
Like, does he have his own private practice? Like, where is he? Um,
Now, it's
and I
one
would be curious to know
thing
about any
to,
other cases he maybe has worked on.
listen, none of us are 100% perfect. So it's one thing not to do something. You know what I mean? You have an off day, you forgot to do something, you forgot to put in a motion, whatever. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but to sit there and just have a complete disregard for why did you become a lawyer? You weren't defending him. Like, what was your purpose of being a lawyer if you didn't want to defend somebody?
I honestly think, and this is just pure speculation, nothing to really back this up, but just based off of seeing how everything's played itself out, I still believe that Christy and Mike Stanfield had something worked out on the back end for whatever would come out. And there was probably some talks, because why would he intentionally? Because even as a public defender, your track record makes a difference in your future with law, right? Because like as a public defender, you won this many cases going up against the state, right, or the prosecutor. Just think of in terms of you have a good track record even as a public defender, which they're generally overloaded, right? So although public defenders are, paid technically by the government, they still care, right? What made him completely not care?
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
There you go, Papa.
Right from the beginning, and again, do it
over there.
if it's just hearing him speak, you know that
Don't turn it up loud.
he has issues, something. You just hearing
Oh
him.
yeah, it's clear the very first seconds, and I don't really. It's not like I'm a special needs teacher or I have special needs kids. Like I don't know that much, right? But I knew even way before like really digging into this, like just watching Interrogation for the first time, I knew something was wrong immediately.
Yeah, me too. First of all, they were leading him too much.
Like that's the other thing, is that the fact that you had to like probe questions and kind of lead the answer, it's like they kind of coerced him almost into like answering questions that were, because he wasn't even, when he said 4 times about the jabbings, they were like, oh, well, are you sure it wasn't more? Like, do you think you did? And then I think at that point he was trying to protect Gypsy. So he was kind of like, oh, well, I could have blacked out and I don't remember.
You still got to remember he was in protection mode that whole time.
And, they kept saying, she kept saying, do you want Gypsy to get in trouble? Or I'm sure you don't want Gypsy to get in trouble. And those types of things, in his mind, he had to protect her. And the whole interrogation, he was questioning them about her. So he was still very much in that mode where he wanted to make sure he was good.
1 second for this nonsense. Ivory, be careful. Dreamer said you should not be a nurse. They are trying to figure out when you work or where you work. Let me tell you something. I do not advertise that I am a nurse on here. But if you have any questions about whether or not you feel that I do not have the capabilities of being an adequate nurse, you can take it up with the Virginia State Board.
Dreamer, let me say something real quick.
You don't have to call my job because I am my own boss, so you can't. But if
they will end up in jail. Y'all want to keep playing around and you don't understand what you're playing with. Bree, Dreamer, Tina, keep playing. Y'all think you're playing. Y'all don't even know.
Then I will sue you for defamation because you're
even further. Because if this is how mentally ill and challenged they are. If they get somebody fired, they talk smack that they're not at work and they're talking about them.
Honey, let me tell you something, Dreamer. I own my own businesses. I live at work, honey. I don't have to go in if I don't want to. I can sit on the internet all day if I want to. I own my own business.
And the more you play, the harder we come. So keep it up. Dreamer, you aren't even intelligent
my
enough
house.
to
I'm
spell
here now.
the. So you might want to watch it.
You want to report me to my job? Go ahead, call me. I'm the boss. I am the CEO.
Dreamer, spell job. Tell me how to spell job first.
But in all fairness, though, to Dreamer, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say, then send me the proof, because that could just be somebody trolling. In all fairness, though, I'm going to be honest there, too. Although she did go talking about me being a nurse today. So,
but spell job and spell nurse, because you can't pronounce either one of them. Okay.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She's the boss, applesauce.
They crazy. And like, you know, they're so crazy because I made good money at my job, but I make more on here. And then y'all, it's wild. You should just left me at work. You should have just left me at work, but y'all was so hard up. And I was under the impression that you felt as though you wanted me to spend more time speaking about Gypsy. So I figured, why not, right?
This is her.
That's what, you know, that would be what would make sense, right? You're not going to stop nobody from getting the bag. That's why you're over there crusty as hell, sitting there eating Marlboro cigarettes for dinner. Stop playing, girl. Stop. Dreamer, I need you to find a face cream.
First of all, I can't lose my job because I own it. But if I did lose my job, that's what I'm saying. I'd just be on here even longer talking more.
Like, Dreamer, go clean your house and the wall. Because them brown stains on your wall look real suspicious.
But in all fairness, I didn't hear her say it. You know there's trolls that come in.
You already know she was saying, why were you a nurse or whatever.
You was already talking about me. You're not a nurse. You shouldn't be a nurse. Because you said that you were gonna, what did I say? I hope Gypsy Rose is unalived or something weird like that. And I'm like,
no, like, first of all, we said that she should have got the penalty. The girl killed her mama. She should have.
Absolutely, that is my right.
She should have. Like, she should have gotten the penalty. Period.
Well,
Dot the end.
You said you would have watched it. I would have. Like, you can sit there and be like, oh, that's a horrible thing to say. That's mean. I don't agree with it, but it's the truth. I would have. Still not gonna lie. It may be a horrible thing for me to say. You might lose a little bit of respect for me.
I don't even think it's a horrible thing for you to say. The reality is she committed matricide. The fact that listen, neither one of our moms were unalived by us. But somehow you defending the girl who unalived her mom.
You know, it's not even like
it's insanity.
Mother, okay? It's not even like that's all she did.
No.
You know what I mean? And then not even that, but it's like, I can see if you were in imminent danger. Like, I can see if, like, she was coming at you with something like, you want to sit there and everyone's talking about how they can almost guarantee that...
Who was her friend?
That Nick would reoffend.
They said, wasn't I her friend?
On the second attempt.
Who was I friends with? Please explain who I was friends with.
She said you can't be a nurse and want death penalty. Well, I can be a nurse because I am a nurse. And I do want... I did think that when she was originally up for murder 1, yeah. I was thinking death penalty. I absolutely agree with that, and I still stand by that. Although it's not an option it wasn't an option for second degree. But yeah, totally was on board with the death penalty for murder one. I'm sorry.
I just want to know who I was friends with.
You don't like the death
Because
penalty
I
because
don't have a single friend that has committed murder. Okay? Not a single friend. At least not that I know of. Hell.
Let me tell you something. You know what makes me a nurse? Having someone I do not like in front of me dying and I help them anyway. That's the oath I am held to as a nurse, that I will treat you to the best of my ability, regardless of who you are or my feelings towards you. I have saved the lives of rapists. Okay, I have sat there and I have helped treat murderers all of the time. Did I want to? No. But did I do it anyway? Because that is my job and the oath that I took? Yeah. And then let the government go deal with them. That is what a nurse is. But it doesn't mean that I can't
That girl
believe that
was
somebody who commits a
first.
heinous crime I shouldn't believe in the death
Read
penalty.
this real quick, love bug. She was tortured by her mom. Okay, I want you to read this. This is fact. This is the court documents. Okay. So, does that sound like torture? The reading is too small. Ivory, can you see it or no?
No.
What? That's page 66. I
You want me to
can't
read
see it. Yeah.
Hold on, let me get to it.
She's gonna read it. Oh, but if I zoom in, it's not gonna show you the whole thing.
You said 66?
Yeah, 65 and 66.
I'm gonna let this piece of cough drop that's stuck in the back of my throat melt before I choke to death. All right. Gypsy explained that when she was 6 years old, she went into the hospital and that during surgery, the doctor said she had a seizure and was paralyzed. They didn't know if the paralyzation was only temporary. She started getting feeling and tingling in her legs. She was young and kept it to herself. She kept it from her mom because she was afraid that her mom would stop loving her. So she kept it to herself until 2011, when she rebelled and ran away from home. She said explaining to their friends that she could walk would be too hard. She says she would like for people to know the truth, but she would lose a lot of friends.
Those are court documents. Okay. So if that sounds like abuse to you, but what it does sound like is that she was even diabolic as a little girl.
What it also says to me was that in 2011, and she started walking, was when she obviously had to tell people, right, that she could walk, because then, if we're going by what she's saying, then her mother knew at that point that she could walk. Everybody knew that she could walk. Oh, it's a miracle, she could walk. So then tell me how she's on a video the other day talking about in 2012, she was diagnosed with the microdeletion, and that was the mother's blueprint for all of her health problems.
Yep.
Make that make sense. When the fact that she knew she could walk and she wasn't paralyzed, when she didn't tell her mother, but she knew it in 2011. How you on a video talking about in 2012, I was diagnosed with a microdeletion that my mother used as a blueprint for all of the care that I received back when I was younger. Meanwhile, it wasn't even on the books until 2008. Make it make sense. How could the blueprint that was available after the fact be a blueprint for something that happened years before? Y'all just y'all just harassing Gypsy. She did her time. Let her live her life. Go live your life. I don't care if she lives her life. Go live. I'm gonna speak because
Listen, we could talk about whatever we want to talk about.
did I show up
If you
to
don't
her?
like it, why are you here? It's just
Am I
simple.
calling her on the phone? Am I doing videos on her? Yes. Am I speaking on her? Yes. You don't like it? Don't watch them.
You're helping the algorithm.
No, she's a convicted murderer. So there's that. But again, they're getting us off
And
track.
again, this really isn't about Gypsy, it's about Nick. But in order for Nick to get some sort of justice, she needs to be exposed. So it's just that simple. If you don't like it, then stop helping the algorithm. You're just helping this get out further. It's just that simple. I know that critical thinking skills and comprehension seems to be such a difficult thing. And I get it. But if you're helping the algorithm, then wouldn't that mean you're helping us allegedly harass?
Yep. Now my thing is, and I want people to understand this. When I say justice for Nick to me, and justice for Nick for you, Nina, and every single one of you people in this chat could all be something different.
Be different.
Justice for Nick doesn't mean, oh, he should be out walking around on the outside. He's going to get a new trial where you're trying to get him a new trial. You're trying to get this. That's not necessarily what justice is. Justice is
his civil rights. Just his
justice
civil rights.
for him is
Yeah.
getting this story out there so other people in the future don't have it happen to them. Well, that's justice to me. That's the justice I would like to see happen. For somebody to sit there and say, you know what, Nick? The trial was injustice. There was a great injustice served to you. It was not fair. And validate that. That to me is a justice. Whether he wants to hear it or not doesn't matter. I see that as a justice. So what I see as justice for Nick and what everybody else here sees as justice for Nick can all be different. And it probably is all different.
And I think even justice for Dee Dee should be on another level now, because now knowing that she lied this whole time, that means even her mom didn't know at one point. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Dee Dee really is a victim, like a on another level. She wasn't.
Now she definitely was a fraud with the state and doing all that.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be a death sentence.
Right. I have been saying that since day one, that I believed, after reading her medical records, I believed that she was the one giving her symptoms to Dee Dee, and Dee Dee, as mom, was advocating for her with the doctors, which was how all of us would function, right? My kids come to me, Mommy, I got a tummy ache. I say, okay, we're going to the doctor. I go call the doctor. We need an appointment. My little one's got a tummy ache. We get to the doctor. Hey, look, she's been complaining about a tummy ache for 2 days. Talk to her so we can figure out what's going on. They're going to say, hey, little so-and-so, you got a tummy ache? Mom says you had a tummy ache. Yeah, I got a tummy ache. It hurts here and here. And I can't poop. Oh, okay, look. But my kid comes to me, and then I go. But now if the doctor said, oh, no, she looks fine, I'm going to fight and be like, my daughter came to me and said she has a stomach ache. So you're not done because her stomach hurts, and you need to figure out why, or fix it, or treat it, or do whatever it is you do. But you're not going to tell me my child doesn't have a stomach ache when my child tells me she has a stomach ache. That is my job as a parent. That is exactly what Dee Dee did, in my opinion. She advocated hard for the daughter who said she had symptoms when doctors were trying to say she didn't. She believed her kid. She shouldn't have, but she did. But wouldn't all of us err to the side of
who would ever know their kid would be that diabolic?
And trust
the same kid you advocated for was the reason why you died.
But again, who's going to think that their kid's lying to them? First, that's not your first go-to.
I mean, you may lie about a tummy ache so you don't have to go to school. You know what I'm saying? But you're not going to lie that your legs stop working.
Right. I'm just saying, just to explain it on a term that people can understand about what I mean when I say Dee Dee was advocating for Gypsy. Like the doctor was trying to say, you ain't got a tummy ache. And she was trying to say, my kid came to me and said she was in pain. You're not telling me she's not in pain. If she's complaining of being in pain, you need to do something. We're not done here. And that's what I feel like Dee Dee was doing. Am I making sense in saying that? Thank you.
Right. No, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And what I'm saying is, yeah, okay, a kid can lie about having something, but okay, like a tummy ache or, my head hurts to cut school or something, but not a whole years and years of your legs not working.
Now, everyone keeps saying, but she had medical books and medical books. First of all, if you judge people by the amount of medical books, I'd be in jail, okay? Because I got them all over the place. Do I sit and study them? You know what I mean? But I have them all over the place. Now, she did have a bunch of medical books and books about diabetes and this, disorder or syndrome or whatever it is. She absolutely did have books laying all around her house. However, I need you to think of it this way. If my child is complaining of something and doctors are stating, no, there's nothing wrong with her, but my kid's still complaining to me, and I don't want my baby to be in pain. I want to know what is wrong with you. Wouldn't you all look up information to see what it could be? Are the doctors forgetting something?
And you talk about medical books. She was a CNA. How much did you think she knew?
So then she knows, everybody in here who's a nurse or a CNA or anything in the hospital knows doctors are human and they make mistakes, right? Doctors can sit there and, you know what I mean? Like maybe sometimes they don't know about something.
Well, that's why it's called practicing medicine.
So
it's called practicing medicine for a reason.
Right. Now, do I think doctors make a mistake in the fact that every doctor you've ever come across in your entire life has committed medical abuse and malpractice to you? No, that's wild. That's wild claims. The fact that that's even the minute amount of possibility that happened is just, again, look at numbers. People, think about it. Think about it. Oh, a doctor mentioned it once in a medical record. Oh, the thousands of or the hundreds of doctors you're saying she was jumping from this doctor here, there, this state, this office, that office, surgery centers, hospitals, eye doctors, this place, that place, every place, all the places, the medical places, right? You said that she was running everywhere, doctor hopping, right? So in all of those hundreds of doctors, hundreds of procedures, all those medical personnel she came in contact with, only once in her entire history, and that's a whopper of a medical record, okay? Only once did anybody ever mention that, and it was just mentioned. I'm just saying. Make it make sense.
And they probably did think Dee Dee had something because Gypsy saying this is wrong, that's wrong, but it ain't wrong. So, I mean, and I do remember in one of her medical records where it does say that I think they hit her leg or somewhere on her leg, and she did have a reaction, so they knew that she had some type of feeling when she was saying she didn't.
The reflexes?
Yes.
You can't fake that. You know how hard it is to fake that? You ever have a doctor hit the knee while and you're like, "Ing,"
right?
And you're take a minute. Yeah, you're not. I mean, it's a reaction. It's a neurological reaction. It's
so
a
reflex. I just think that part is very interesting when you think about it, because that is something that was said where you really think about that. You're like, well, dang. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could see why they thought maybe she was malingering. I mean, or, I could see.
And I think to a certain extent, if I'm going to be completely honest, I mean, I think there was malingering.
They were malingering. Yeah, they were.
She might have exaggerated her daughter's diagnosis and symptoms to grift and get, you know what I mean, system care, to get homes and money, to get all the things. We watch people do it all day, every day. Let's be real. How many people are sitting at home collecting fake disability checks with Section 8 and all of that other stuff? Like, it's a thing in the country. So, a lot of people do it. So I'm not going to sit there and say she's completely innocent because no, I really don't believe
No,
so.
they're definitely not.
But I
Yeah.
don't believe that she is the demon that everyone's out, is out there making her. Although I don't believe that she is the angel everyone's making her either, because we're all human. Like we're not
Yeah.
gonna play a violin and have her, no. She still did things that were wrong. She still made bad decisions. She still, you know what I
She
mean?
still stole. Like, people, she's known to be a con artist. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Right.
Um,
But she did not deserve to be
no,
unalived and in the manner in which she was unalived.
no. And not only unalived, and then villainized.
Yeah. Yeah. The way people ran with that story is wild to me. Absolutely wild.
When it's like everyone could have just requested the FOIA. I don't understand it.
Yeah. And not everything in this paperwork is 100% fact. No one's saying that.
But
What I
those
mean?
videos where they're actually describing what she said in there, that is a fact.
What was said, the conversation that transpired between the two of them, are fact. Our interpretation of it, however, is not fact. But the actual goings on with all of this is fact. I agree, my husband's wife for life. Question.
But I also think part of it, to really be honest with you, why this wasn't looked into as deep as it should have been, is because the family didn't really advocate for Dee Dee.
No. Not as much. I don't know. I've never really spoken to the Petries, enough to even. I don't know how much they knew or what to believe. I don't know what their relationship was with Dee Dee. I don't know.
Well, I think because it was their niece, I think they were conflicted.
Yeah.
Right. But I also don't think they realized she is as diabolic as she is.
So I have never asked. I would love to know that though. You know what I mean? Like, to how much was known about that, you know what I mean? What was going on, and I don't know. I don't know. Like, were they as close? I know that they lived a distance, I believe, but again, I can't answer. I
Well,
wish
it
I knew.
seemed like there was some sort of animosity with her, and because Dee Dee was the baby, and her mom has always. It seemed as though she handled her with like extra delicacy. In comparison to the rest of her siblings, just based off of what they said in one of the documentaries. So if we were to go off of that, I do think there always was kind of like an underlining thing, but not where they hated her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it was that. But I think the major thing was that they were conflicted because it was their niece. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want your niece to go away for life, even though this is still your blood.
Yeah, it's your sister's daughter. Like, you still want to have a relationship. That's the last piece of your sister left. Let's be real.
Right.
Like, that's, my sister loved her daughter. And so, of course, I want to love her too and love her for my daughter and be there for her just like my sister would want me. You know what I mean? But at the
Right.
same time, it's like really conflicting because you took my sister away. And again, how much did they know of Gypsy and her medical issues and what she was telling Dee Dee? And you know what I mean? When you
I
look
bet you
at the
they don't even
story,
know that she was faking it this whole time. You see what I'm saying? Like, because if Dee Dee didn't know, how would they know? So I think
when you look at the story, it's convincing if you don't, if you don't look into it and you just take it at face value, you'd be, oh my goodness, what was my sister doing?
right.
But then when
Right.
you actually look into things and take a step back and be like, wait, let's think about this. You know what I mean? Like,
And with this FOIA information, I really do wish that they would sue Gypsy for wrongful death, because this FOIA proves, like, on another level that,
I mean, they would win.
yeah, easily it would be a
That's right.
slam
At the
dunk.
end of the day, if it wasn't for Gypsy, she would be alive. Period. Point blank. It doesn't matter. She admitted to killing her.
Yeah, I think it's
But then again, at the same point, that's your sister's daughter.
well, at this point, I think being able to know who she is, because I think that to me is part of the problem, is identifying who she is. But now knowing who she is, I think I would have been okay with it.
Yeah. That's a hard one, though, I think.
But
The
that's
eternal
but you want
struggle
to keep
there.
everybody else safe too, right? She's a danger to society, not just like she should.
And I'm, in all fairness, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, they both are a danger to society. One absolutely unalive someone. The other one, well, I mean, you attempted to. The second time she ended up dead because of you, and the first time you pulled a BB gun and a knife on her. You were trying to kill her. So, and you opened fire. So that was 2 attempts on a life made. Tell me again how it's not possible for her to reoffend.
Oh no, she absolutely would. I don't, like I said before, I thought possibly it would be like a financial crime, but now I do think well, history is repeating itself right now. Look at she's doing the same behavior. The same multiple accounts. Even Ryan Anderson said she had multiple accounts.
Crystal, you're saying cancer was listed on her autopsy. Doesn't matter. That doesn't. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China?
It wasn't listed as she has cancer currently, but she did have cancer.
Oh, sorry, Crystal. I didn't know someone was asking. Yeah, her medical history doesn't matter. She could have been dying tomorrow, but if you unalive her today, it's just as horrible. You took her life away.
I think at the end of the day, no matter how you look at this, it's a bad situation, and she didn't deserve it. Period.
Right. Absolutely, I agree. Both of them are wrong for it, and you guys know my stance on it. I think they should both be in prison for life. I don't think that she proved that she did any rehabilitating. I don't think that she, again, you made 2 attempts on the same life. Let's be real. So it's always a question of whether or not you're going to reoffend. You know what I mean? There's concern because if you haven't gotten the help psychologically that you need.
Well, she's not even capable.
In all fairness to her, though, that should have happened before she left jail. That should be a stipulation. That she
But
should
a narcissist, you can't get, like, they only play mind games with therapists. So there's that. Like, we can't. That's not even realistic at this point.
But at the end of it, though, it's like, yeah, she did her time, but did she do enough?
But did she though? Because this is all, she did her time based off of a fabricated story. So did she do her time?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Not in my opinion. And she sat there and spent her time making her exit cushy, with interviews and books and all of that. Instead of focusing on her real issues, she focused on how much money can be made. Her focus was all wrong, and that's the problem. That's where I am disgusted by her. Disgusted is a good word. You know what I mean? And then everyone's like, well, why do you make videos? Why do you care of what she's doing today? And she's living her life. That's the problem. She's still making harsh, rash decisions, horrible decisions, even today.
He killed her mom for sausage and is capitalizing on it.
Right. Right.
Need I say any more?
Right. And if I see even one time in this chat, man, you're going to get blocked. Don't come at me with, don't you make money talking about the crime? I did not kill nobody. She, however, did.
I make money. I made money off of several Diddy videos too. Does that mean I'm wrong because he
I
committed a
made
crime
money
and I
off of
made
the
money
video
off that
talking about
video?
I got no spoons left in my house. And I made good money off that one.
Like, just like make it make sense.
Yeah.
The difference is we're not criminals.
So I don't know that they don't really follow the Son of Sam law anymore, SL.
No, so the Son of Sam law is there were a couple of people that turned around and sued because they said it was a freedom of speech and they did win. So yes, this law is in place in most states, but they still don't really follow through with it because
there's a lot more loopholes through it, is what it is. Mm-hmm. But again, that's the problem with justice and the law. Everybody wants to bring in gray areas, and I really don't.
And y'all say she served her time, but if she served her time, is it okay for her to make money off of the fact that, because think about it this way, would you know who she was if she didn't kill her mom?
I don't think that you should be able to take a while. You shouldn't be able to go from life and death penalty down to 8.5 years.
No, that's wild.
Drastic of a change for me. I don't think that's wild. Well, absolutely wild to me.
Not only that, furthermore, this woman was willing to offer up her child.
Yeah.
She's a predator. She was a predator on a special needs man. She's willing to be a predator with her child. Look what she did even before in terms of the picture, the AI picture of her daughter. This woman's a predator, period.
I absolutely believe that her way of thinking is predatory. Absolutely. And what she sat there, and again, she hasn't shown her behavior in the public today. Or why do you keep talking about this scandalous affair? And why do you keep, because it's a disregard for humans. It's a disregard for relationships. She came from murdering her mother. It shows the same way of thinking. It shows her inability to make good decisions. She makes rash and harsh decisions. She rushes into everything. It just shows that her way of thinking has not changed. And that is concerning because her way of thinking is the same person who manipulated a man into killing her mother. So that's why I speak about what she's doing today. Because it just shows that her behavior and the way she thinks and the way she reacts and her coping skills are the same as they were back then. That's why it matters. That's why, just talk about the crime then. And then all of a sudden you talk about the crime and bitches are crying. It's wild. It's wild to me. You don't talk about her today, then talk about the crime. You start talking about the crime, and then it's like, wah, why are you talking about the crime? She did her time. She didn't do enough, in my opinion. And I am one of her peers. She should have sat in front of a jury of her peers. I'm just saying. It's not for who I already think was a corrupt judge, a corrupt prosecution, to sit there and give her 10 years. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't think you can jump from life in prison and the death penalty possibility with first degree and jump all the way down to 10 years. Because then it doesn't make the punishments make very much sense. Yesterday, what I did was so bad you could have put me to death. But today what I did is only getting me 10 years. Make it make sense, guys. How does that work? Call it what you will, the crime never changed. And then you want to sit there and add in, oh, I'm a victim, wah, wah. Okay. All right. Still, You're being a victim. If that got you 10 years, then what about Nick's victim? Nick was also a victim. Nick was also abused and raised in an abusive environment. So why didn't his abuse get him the same as you? As you all want to sit here and talk about how, you want to invalidate people's abuse stories. Well, coming from you all, then you can't invalidate his abuse, right? Abuse is abuse. Isn't that the argument that is always coming at me? Abuse is abuse. Well, then you got to validate his abuse too. His lack of psychological care, his lack of medical care, his lack of good parents, man. So then again, his abuse should have been played into it as well. Otherwise, where's the justice? Where's the justice? Makes no sense. Oh, we like her better, so her abuse was real abuse. Yours wasn't. I like this story. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to open up a gray area in a situation that should be black and white, if you're going to open up that gray area, then you have to open it up for all. And that's the problem when you start adding in justifications to murder. Then everybody's situation needs to be handled the same way. And people can sit there and rant about how you hate me, how I lie. Put your judgment on me however you want. You're mad because I'm making sense. You're mad because what I'm saying is right. And I'm not sitting here saying Nick should be out walking the streets. No. I think he's a danger to society. But so is she. And
Right.
she is out here walking the streets.
I don't know if...
Let me ask you this. Would everybody be concerned if Nick had a child? If Nick had a child, wouldn't you all be concerned? Be honest. You got to be honest, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
All of you are saying yes. Yeah. Why? Because just like she offered him to rape her child, he was willing to do it. That makes them both equally concerning to be parents, right? So what's good for one has got to be good for the other. You can't sit there and say, well, he said he was going to rape this person and that person. He's doing this. And then she's offering a child to a man to be raped. Her own flesh and blood. Her own child. And she's not as sick or as concerning. Make it make sense. Oh, would you want him sleeping on your couch? Would you want her sleeping on your couch? 2 attempts at murdering the same person. Just because you're adding your own personal emotion into it doesn't make her any less dangerous. So there's that. Sorry, went on a rant, but And we're not even going to sit there and talk about Ken and Ryan, because if you want my honest opinion on both men, you're both predators. You were sitting there looking at this girl who was already manipulated, thinking that, what, you thought it was right for you're going to go and marry the chick in prison? Y'all both decided you're going to go shopping in the prison for a wife. You looked at her, you saw a childish woman.
Nobody wants me to add them. I just want to hear what they have to say. I could just connect.
What attracted you to her? Her sob story, her trauma dumping? What attracted you to her? That is anything that formulates a respectable relationship. What attracted you to her? The fact that she looked like a child? The fact that she spoke like a child? The fact that she had no education, no life experience that you're saying? Well, what was your attraction to her? Oh, that little 10-year-old looking female is hot. What attracted you to her? Her story of trauma? Well, that right there is going to tell you that if your relationship...
Pretend that wasn't it. She looked like a little boy, and he likes boys.
You can't have a relationship based on feeling bad for somebody's trauma and history. That is not healthy, and that is not going to help a relationship grow. Just saying. That's not why relationships are formed or how they're formed. So both of them are predatory, in my opinion. Sorry. I didn't mean to overspeak. Are you frozen, or are you just able to sit that still? Oh, she's frozen. I thought she was sitting there still.
No,
I'm like, are you really able to sit there and not move like that?
girl. What was I saying? I don't even remember. You know my memory's bad. That's why I have to get it out when it comes. But I don't. Here's the thing. In my mind, I think she's more dangerous because she is able to plan something like that and manipulate someone into it with special needs. That means, and and that's where I feel like the line gets a little murky because you also want to make sure that we don't set the stage to say, like, disregard the fact of his. It becomes tough because we know that he was manipulated and we don't understand or know exactly what level of his grasping did he grasp, right? So
Right.
I think it's kind of hard to really assess, because I mean, look at it. Ryan's a grown man and he's mad at Christy and Ken,
Right.
right? Like, and that's someone with not special needs that we know of, right? So a normal person could be manipulated. I don't know if it's to that length, but
Anybody can be
right.
manipulated.
So it
Again,
kind of makes you just think, like, how many people in your life do you run into like Gypsy?
none.
No. And for a female, that is not, those traits are not typical for a female, which is why I think society, the judges, public defenders have looked at this case the way they have because it's not a typical traits of a female, right? Like, she's like a Jeffrey Dahmer, a Ted Bundy. Those traits are very typical, are more typical or more known in men. I think they say, like, it's like 8% of women will ever be, or less, I think maybe 2% or something like that, are like that, right? Now think about that in a grand scheme of things. When men, it's in a much higher rate, right? That is not traditional, and that is why a lot of people have a hard time really wrapping their mind around her being dangerous because of the fact that she's a woman.
There's absolutely gender biases in the justice system. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like a lot more was put on him, a lot more of the responsibility was put on him, a lot more of all of it, just the way their interrogations went. He sat there at a table, handcuffed for 15 hours in a small cold room with no blanket, and the little girl, the woman, got a couch, a stuffed animal, a blanket, and fed.
hmm So in the grand scheme of things, when you look at this, there's a lot of gender bias. And also you have to think of, like, the people that were trying this case, the lawyers, the judges, the prosecutors, they were all men.
Right. I think, and two, I think that they looked at Nicholas and they looked at Nicholas's family and they knew that they were going to be an easy scapegoat and that her story was just too much for them to even want. They didn't even want to open Pandora's box with that. Let's be real, they didn't. Because then they would have had to dig into abuse and fraud and all of that. Like,
I
that's
can't
what
add you because we're co-hosting. It won't let me do that.
it's expensive. It's all of that. And you know what I mean? I feel like whatever. She could have served only one day and it was a win in their book.
hmm
You know what I mean? Because it's still a win is a win.
hmm
Again, that is their quota. That looks good on them. They want to sit there and say, well, out of the
They just
1,000
needed a
cases
guilty
that
verdict.
this
Yeah. Or
prosecutor's office, tried, we won 999 of them. They want that. Those numbers are important, especially in an election year.
hmm
You don't want to sit there during an election year and have a whole shit show happen because let's be real. Somebody was not going to be happy. She's a victim. She's not a victim. There was abuse. She's fraud. This, that, this. It just wasn't happening. Nick had parents. Obviously, they knew about his abuse and his unstable family environment. And obviously, he looked like, hey, no one, let's be real. How much are they going to complain?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were lower class. Look at him.
And
See that he had
that
issues.
has a lot to do with it, especially when you talk about the criminal justice system. When you do not have money,
Absolutely.
you will get railroaded.
Yep.
I mean, like when you really look at this situation all across the board, and I think the leverage that Gypsy had, even with a public defender, is this was a story that would sell later.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that going into it.
Yeah.
Because why would Mike Stanfield stay around and manage her and be there when she got out of prison? He was at her party, her welcome home party. What type of attorney is that? Because that's really, and to me, that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
There had to be some deal worked out. I don't care what anyone says. I believe that that's what happened. I don't know that for a fact, but when you just kind of look at the way things played out, it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I just see a lot of corruption in this whole thing. And again, don't come at me with, oh, it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. You mean to tell me that the Supreme Court? Yes. Do I think that the Supreme Court, do I think that these people sitting in office and they get files upon files upon files of paperwork for everybody who wants to make a complaint about the justice system, and do they just sit there and go, how much heat are we going to get for this one? Oh, this one's not important. Oh, high profile? Let's pick this one up. That guy, no one gives a shit about Nick. Who the fuck is Nick?
Because think about it
That's not
this
going to
way.
be on our ass. But this one, make sure this one goes to the front of the pile because this one is important. This one can get us some attention. Yes,
Because
I absolutely believe that the Supreme Court works like that. I absolutely believe all these people work like that. You don't sit there and tell me that you think all of these politicians and everybody else goes to work and they're on the straight and narrow and they're, oh, I'm going to be 100% honest today and do my job the way it's intended to be done. Let's be real.
now I'll also pose you this. If Gypsy had a case that would have won in the courtroom or got lesser time, she wouldn't have had a public defender. It
Right.
was a high profile case. Any attorney would have been willing to take it up pro bono.
For free.
For the publicity of it, it would have been advertisement. The fact that no attorney took it up pro bono should tell you a whole lot about the case. It was not a winning case. If it went to trial, she would have lost.
Let me tell you, didn't he save himself? The second that video.
He said it was a tough pill to swallow. The second he saw the video, he said that was a very tough pill to swallow. So the fact that she had a public defender, that should really tell, hey, Anarchy, that should really tell you what this case looked like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if you guys remember the hiccup girl. The girl that would hiccup nonstop at one point. They ended up, her and her boyfriend ended up with a co-defendant. So it was two guys, a girl, set this guy up to rob him.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy got buck, and one of them shot him and killed him. All for $50.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? But because she wasn't the one who shot and killed him, she even had an attorney that was pro bono. And Gypsy didn't have a pro bono attorney.
Yeah.
That should tell you everything you need to know. When you look at those the documents and the proof, nobody was gonna want to take that up.
Yep.
Yes, Jennifer Me.
Give me 1 second. Carry on this. I'll be right back. I'm going to run to the...
And that's a very interesting case. I don't know if you guys have saw that for $50, and they were supposed to split that between the three of them. So not even $50 for real. Like, that was like, when I heard that, I said, damn, that was really some bum stuff. Yeah. And they were even trying to use the fact that she hiccuped a lot and said that it was Tourette's or something. Yeah. Well, but Mike Stanfield was also a public defender. So it's public defenders have to take the case, right? Because that's their job. You know what I'm saying? So like, but I do think there was some sort of deal worked out. Look, I can't say Mike Stanfield is corrupt because I don't know that. I am just saying, well, it appears to be he's corrupt, right? Is he really? I mean, he knows as much as what we know, so, or more. And he said it was a tough pill to swallow, so I guess, I mean, one could say he is. But I think the bigger demon is Dan Patterson, to be honest, because what we've seen in that FOIA, he was the prosecutor. So in my opinion, he's more of the issue than Stanfield. And that's just my
You're talking about, right?
opinion.
You're talking about Patterson?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. He was the one lying and the judge was letting him do it.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one withholding evidence. He was the one, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't even understand why they had the detectives do all that investigation for them to drop the damn ball any damn way.
The detectives were upset. The detectives were
Right.
upset.
But that's what I'm saying. For the judge, the DA, and all of them to know how much work that they put into that. They had confessions, you know what I'm saying? For them to drop the ball like this as much, because you have to think, the average unaliving like this, would they have found all that proof on somebody's laptop? No. You would have likely dealt with people that were more intelligent, right? So you wouldn't have had that much proof.
You know what I think,
This
though?
was just there.
When you're talking, well, no, I guess it was only 10 years ago, so maybe not. Never mind.
Listen, at 14, I knew what to not have in writing.
Thank you.
And I wasn't doing anything off the chain. Just something to have in writing that my parents could catch me.
Yep. I just think it's wild that this story made it out into the public the way it did, that the media put it out there like they knew for a fact that this story was a story, and that I get the whole, everyone wants to believe the poor victim. I get it. But I mean, nobody questioned it. Nobody questioned anything. I think that's wild. Shit, you're not getting up on my panel and I'm going to question you like crazy. You know what I mean? Like an investigative journalist, an anchor, everyone's going to sit there and interview this woman without doing their homework. That's wild to me. Like, how do
Well,
you do
I
your
think
job?
everybody's relying on the last person.
You know,
Yeah, I really think that's where the issue is.
that's exactly what
Everybody's
happened.
relying on the last person that interviewed her and the story. I mean, because when you look it up on Chat GPT, they say she's innocent. Like, I
Yep.
literally had to argue with Chat GPT. I told Chat GPT to stop pissing me off.
Thank you, the cool witch. Yeah, I feel
So
like,
they're just relying on what the journalists have said.
yeah, I think it's wild. All of it. And for her family to come out and say what they said, like Rod Blanchard is disgusting, in my opinion. I think he is just absolutely disgusting. You're sitting there acting like your abandonment of your daughter and not questioning anything didn't, even if her story was true, well, what you're saying is you abused her as well. And here you are saying that Dee Dee got what she asked for. What? You abandoned your kid, dude. In fact, she's not the only one you've ever abandoned. I mean, yeah, you can make nice with them now that they're adults and their mothers, they're all raised and everything's done. But at the end of the day, you walked away from your responsibility. Why was he not held responsible? Why was he not held responsible for any of this? Why was he not held responsible for the abuse? Why was Rod Blanchard not held responsible for any of it? He neglected her. He abandoned her. How do you sit there? Oh, because I didn't know. Her mother told me this and I just believed it. You have an obligation as a parent responsible for this. If you're saying Dee Dee is responsible, then I'm sorry, you're just as responsible, Rod. Why are you not being charged with neglect and abandonment and leaving her in an abusive situation that she had to murder her mother, if your story is so correct, Gypsy?
I'll be right back.
Like, I'm serious, though. How is that not a thing? You can't sit there and say, oh, her mother abused her. Her mother did this to her. I had no idea. No, you don't get to play dumb, dude. It is your obligation and responsibility. It is your obligation and responsibility as a parent to make sure your child is safe. I don't sit there, oh no, she's crying, but she's fine. No, I'm going to go check myself. Why didn't you show up to doctor's appointments? Why didn't you question anybody? And the fact that you didn't and allowed her to be abused, and maybe she wouldn't have been abused, if you believe her story, then maybe she wouldn't have been abused if you had stepped in and been a father, even if you didn't live with her. So why are you not held responsible for the abuse she endured? Because you should have been there to stop it. And don't tell me, oh, we couldn't find her. We couldn't find her. Let's be real. For real? How many people in this chat have sat there and had to go to court to sit there and say, I want visitation. I want to know where my daughter is. I want rights to the doctor's appointments. All you had to do was care, a smidgen of care, and maybe your daughter wouldn't be a murderer. You should be held responsible. And you should be held legally responsible, in my opinion. You should absolutely be held legally responsible. You abandoned your child, and she was abused, and you didn't care enough to check, and you went with the whole scenario, but she told me. Then you are legally responsible for the abuse as well, because you abandoned her and did not parent her and did not fulfill your obligation as a parent. So somebody tell me why he wasn't charged. I know, anarchy, I know. But I'm just saying, if you go by their scenario and you go by their story, then you're absolutely responsible. And you should have been charged, just like Dee Dee would have been charged if she was alive, right? Because you have a legal obligation and responsibility to your child. We are legally responsible to our children. That's just the way it is. So how are you not responsible for all of this too, Rod? Somebody make that make sense to me. Oh, well, she said, I just believed her. So you're dumb? That's your really? That's your defense? No, that you were just as abusive as Dee Dee was. You were just as abusive as Dee Dee was. And I think it's wild that nobody held him responsible for that. Oh, well, Dee Dee said she didn't know she was 18, so I just rode with it. For real? Come on. Come on, people. Come on. You can't tell me that anybody believes that fucking story. It's just absolutely wild. Rod is absolutely 100% responsible for the abuse of his daughter as well. So, again, you're sitting here in all your interviews and your documentaries talking about how, talking about Dee Dee with your wife over there, sitting there talking about how she's this horrible person, but your wife was forgetting to say, well, so is my husband, the same horrible person that Dee Dee is. Because if you had stepped up, maybe she wouldn't have been abused, right? If you had showed up to doctor's offices and hospital visits and asked some questions like you have an obligation to do, maybe your daughter wouldn't be a murderer. Just saying. It's just absolutely ridiculous. All of it. All of it. They're all sitting there telling these lies, justifying their horrible, horrible actions. That apple did not fall far from that fucking tree. Just saying. So make it make sense. You all want to sit there and interview him. Am I the only person that if I was interviewing him, I would have been like, well, what part did you play in all the abuse? Like, why is nobody questioning any of this? I think it's absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Oh, she hid from us. Like, you can't even use that as an excuse. All you had to do was pick up a phone. Let's be real. If it didn't make sense to you, instead of just believing you could have called CPS yourself and been like, go check on my kid. Welfare check. You are just as responsible for her abuse. Hey, pumpkin. Look at me I was going to do one of these, like to see if he was around the corner, like I could see. It's just, this family is just disgusting to me. I think they're horrible people. And they're all running with this story because it makes them money and, hey, whatever, but somebody's dead and you're just as responsible for it, Rod. Her death is on your hands as well. Her blood is on your hands. You don't want to sit there and get baptized 25 times. Well, just saying. You might want to think about that. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. So, I don't know. You can't sit there and say that any of this, it's just a wild story. It's just a whole bunch of false stories for justification of all of it. It's fake stories to justify the corrupt system and the injustice that Nick saw. It's a bunch of lies and corruption to cover up the fact that Rod was just as abusive as Dee Dee. And that maybe if he stepped up, his daughter wouldn't be a murderer and his ex-wife wouldn't have been dead. Or medically abused. I mean, why are you not taking... You have to take as much responsibility as Dee Dee had. You are 50% of the parenting unit. Whether you live there or not, whatever you want to sit there, oh, I was dumb, I just didn't care enough. It doesn't matter. You should be held responsible for your lack of care. You're legally obligated to care. You're legally obligated to take care of your child. And people could sit there and say, you're mean, that's a horrible thing to say. It is a truth I'm speaking. Let's be real. And to sit there and justify the horrible behavior of all these people just says who all of you are. Oh, Dreamer, Ivory Rose, how can you sit there and say that Gypsy having the death penalty, is taking a life? What kind of nurse are you? How can you say that about somebody? Meanwhile, in the same breath, the woman is defending a woman who took her mother's life. What? Why don't I value life? I do value life. You don't either. You're sitting there defending someone who murdered someone. Are we really going to go at this? Like, that's wild to me. The way people sit there and play on words. Absolutely ridiculous. They all knew she could walk. Her friends knew she could walk. She knew she could walk. Let's be real. Rod knew she could walk. Rod knew it was all a lie and a scam. But Christy didn't want him anywhere near Dee Dee. So it was like, whatever, just make sure the money's paid. And even that wasn't done.
Yeah, because he didn't really financially support her.
It's just wild.
It's crazy that's where I say, you know, Christy, like, I don't know.
And don't tell me that she didn't know that she can get help. She knew she can go steal a knife from Walmart to murder her mother. She knew if she pulled the trigger, bullets would come out. You didn't know that if you hit 911, a cop would show up? Come on.
Let her tell the story. She didn't.
She didn't what?
She didn't know that. Let her tell the story.
Yeah, it's just wild.
She was smart enough to have a 3-ring binder with all that proof that she was of age so she could go.
Seriously.
Do her thing.
She was grown enough to have a sex slave. This girl knew more about all of that
Are you
nonsense.
talking about the toothbrush?
That, you know what I mean? It's just wild to me, though. That chick knew more about that than I do at my ripe old age over here. But she couldn't put 2 and 2 together and be like 911 start. Or if I can run away and spend the night at Dan's house, then maybe I should have ran away to a police station. Oh, they wouldn't have believed me. Well, then just tell them to check your medical records, Gypsy. Wild. Absolutely wild.
But then again, she admitted that she'd been lying to her mom the whole time. So where's the abuse? And
then you sit there and these people around here, I saw someone sent me a video, okay? And you got, well, you can't believe her. Do you believe her then or do you believe her now? If you couldn't believe her then and you're saying, well, maybe she was lying then.
Well, that was a video to Nick.
How the hell are you all believing her now?
In the court documents. Like, I actually would believe that more than anything she would say after the death.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, you know what I'm saying? Like.
And let's be real. How many times can a true story change?
Her story has changed multiple times. Even her story on 60 Minutes changed.
Yeah. How many times can your story change? You come out, you're faking accountability. Oh, I am responsible. And then you come out being Damona, talk about, I'm not responsible. I'm not a murderer. Which one is it? You're lying to people to make you look better. But then eventually comes out who you really are, which shows that you haven't changed from the same person that murdered their mother. And that's where her behavior today comes into play and why we speak on it, or at least why I speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the behavior she shows today shows that it hasn't deviated from the behavior she portrayed back then.
At all.
And she's still chronically online. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And again, what does she do? Listen, if I could jump into one person's cell phone, I feel like her Google search engine would have freaking bipolar. It would be one place here, one place there, it'd be all over the place. It wouldn't know what the hell to do. It'd be crazy.
Now that I think you're right about.
It's like how to breastfeed my baby, and how to, it's just wild, absolutely wild. How to communicate with my co-defendant without anybody finding out. Like I could just imagine the nonsense that goes into that search engine.
Or her chat GPT.
You did it, Jesse! Could you imagine that poor thing?
No, but chat GPT is trusting her because I'm telling you, I had to tell chat GPT multiple times, stop pissing me off. That girl is guilty. And what she said, while I understand what you're saying, if you can show me proof. And ChatGPT says, oh, I see here, it does look like she might not be innocent, but she is innocent. ChatGPT, cut it out. Cut it. Cut it out.
I trained my chat GPT. Well, it knows better than to even. Yeah, she did it. She did it 3 times.
Right off. I went to sleep mad as hell. Pissed me right off.
Mine has her strapped in the chair.
Be like, girl, didn't I tell you already?
Mine is like, okay, well, I'll say whatever you want about her. Don't come at me. You're hitting those buttons really hard, Ivory. Mine does. Mine already has one arm strapped in a chair. Hell yeah, she did it, Ivory. Hell yeah, she did it. Crazy.
Yes, it's wild when you think about it. Good news is my baby made it home. I was like not sleeping the best. So she took a flight to see her dad with her grandma. And then she took a flight from her dad to Disney. So she was at Disney. So I was like, okay, 2 down, 1 more to go. I just need her to get home. Like in my mind, I just was like, okay. So just that she got home, I'm like so relieved. Because I was like, man.
My ducklings are in now, settled for the night. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So I'm like, she made it home. That was my biggest thing. And I normally don't get nervous about her flying, but lately, lately you just get real nervous. Yep. Like, and it's crazy because you don't want to like live your life in fear and have them live their life in fear, but it's a fine line between like letting them live without,
not wanting them to be afraid of everything, but still wanting them to be like on the lookout and be,
Yeah, so that to me is kind of like the hardest thing because even a couple of months ago, back in January, we were in her therapist appointment, and I had said, because she was saying like, Mommy, why don't we go to like more play places? And I was like, because we used to go to like a lot, right? And I was like, it's a lot going on right now. And, home is safe. That's why, you have your big TV, you have all these games, the playroom is like, made for you guys to be very comfortable. And so that weekend that shootout happened at the fashion show that we were at, it was crazy because, what shocked me? Her therapist asked her, so wait, let me preface this. She said in her therapist why we didn't go to more play places like we used to, and I said that to her. So her therapist was like, yeah, there's a lot going on right now. Your mom's right. Home is safe, right? Okay, so that incident happened that weekend, and I made sure I scheduled an appointment for that following week, just if there was something that she wasn't saying to me, she would say to her therapist because she really loves her therapist. So she said to her therapist, when her therapist asked her if she was okay, if there was anything that was bothering her about it, She said no because I knew I was going to be okay because my mom was there, right?
Oh.
And it really made me think that in her mind, even though she had to hide underneath the table and they were hysterical, she, in her heart, because I was there, she would be okay. And that's what spared her the trauma, right? So the therapist said, it's crazy, out of all the moms that this would happen to, she was like, it really makes me sad because you're the one mom that was like, no, let's just stay home. Home is safe. And we had that conversation here. And for this to happen, she was like, it makes me sad because you've been the one that has been extra cautious. And that made me think to myself, like, it's hard because you want to make sure they're safe, but at the same time, you don't want to like keep a leash on them all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like a fine line. And then I started thinking to myself, like, if something's gonna happen, it doesn't matter where you're at.
It's gonna happen.
It's your time. And coming to accept that, I feel like it's like a hard thing to really accept because you always think, well, if I was somewhere else, maybe this wouldn't have. But it was meant for you to be where you were when that was written in your story, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for me, that's just like such a hard, like, it's just hard to kind of figure out. Yeah.
Getting over that kind of control and just letting life be life and not
Right.
controlling inevitable. Yeah. Yeah.
But oh wow, I got to 129.9K likes. I appreciate you guys.
Jackie just said somebody asked ChatGPT what Gypsy did with her toothbrush. What happens when you do that, Jack? What does it say?
I'm gonna block all of y'all. Thank you, Alf.
What does it say? Oh, she said, hold on, she'll be back. Put it into ChatGPT and let me see what it says.
Thank you.
I know what mine will say. She rode that broom like a witch.
Not like a witch. Like the witch she is. That's what it should be saying. So clarify.
Cool witch, yeah. She really will.
Hold on 1 second.
I'm just curious to see if Jackie talks to her ChatGPT, I already know it's going to say something about flaps. I'll ask, and I just learned about it, and apparently it's if it could cook, it would be my bestie. I'm telling you. All right, Jack, I need to know. All right, put a 1 in the chat if you think it's going to say something that she did with the toothbrush. And put a 2 in the chat if you think it's going to say that she just brushed her teeth with it. I'm with you, Miss Moore. Especially if Jackie's asking on her ChatGPT. Oh, we got some more 2s. Holla, Mom, you go check yours. I'll check mine. I'm about to check mine. It told you the truth? Oh! It knows what you did with the toothbrush. It does. I will read it to you right now. Gypsy Rose. And it shows the picture of the teeth, though. Wow. Please don't do that to me. But it says Gypsy Rose Blanchard, known for her involvement in the death of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, has been featured in various videos over the years. However, there is no widely recognized or reported video where she does something notable with the toothbrush. It is possible, however, that this refers to the lesser known or private video that is not covered extensively in public media. So it knows about the video. I swear to God. I'm not lying. Look, hold on. Let me move this little thing so you guys can get my bank card so y'all are not charging up my bank. Can you guys even read that? It's possible that this refers to the lesser known or private videos. See it? Isn't that wild? That's so funny that even Sally or ChatGPT over here knows what Gypsy Rose did with her toothbrush. So, and then the toothpick, the teeth pick. I know. It's trying to tell me that it knows what she didn't do with the toothbrush. It's throwing that at me. The mouth is mouthing. Yeah, for real.
You know what? I just sent ChatGPT the whole document, the FOIA, and was like, read this and tell me if she's guilty or not.
What did it say?
I'm waiting on her to respond.
Thank you,
I'm
Tangy.
sick of her. I'm gonna submit that every day. ChatGPT, read this. Stop playing with me. Girl, I told you that girl is not.
Mine is just going to tell you she's guilty.
Oh, that's so funny. If you put in the new FOIA for Gypsy Rose, it comes up with Nina's name in ChatGPT. I'm loving it.
Stop it. That's so funny.
Gypsy. How about that, Gypsy?
ChatGPT mock trial? I'm all for that.
I'm making a little dent. I'm getting there.
What's ChatGPT? It's an AI.
ChatGPT
Yeah, explain it. I don't know.
is like an AI bestie.
Yeah.
He has the answers to everything other than the real answers for Gypsy Rose. That's all I know.
And AI Google. Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's a good... I'm going to name mine.
No, because she could actually write a whole essay for you.
Yeah.
She could type up a whole email.
It's going to
Let
make...
me tell you, she was definitely a valedictorian or a salutatorian of her class, okay?
Yeah, for real. I'm going to name my ChatGPT Gemma.
I'm going to name her Demona. I'm just joking.
Gypsy, are you guilty? Yes, ma'am. I can't even. But on that note, guys, it is 1:45. That was a really big reading thing that I did. We'll cover more tomorrow. Thank you, Nina, for being here.
Yeah, well, we'll cover Demona tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yes.
I knew I felt like I was missing something the whole time, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But yes, I did print out the stuff on Demona, and I completely forgot.
And then what Dr. Wasserman said, too.
Yes, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. Same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys for all of the gifts, all of the likes. We hit 235,000. I appreciate you all. Thank you all for the support, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Same. Thank you.